Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Impact Farming Show. Today, we have the always amazing Gerry Friesen, the recovering farmer. How are you, Gerry?
I'm well, Tracy. Thanks for having me.
I am so happy to have you back on the show to get caught up, to talk mental health. Are you ready to roll?
Absolutely.
Perfect. I know everybody that watches the show on a regular basis will know who you are, but we're always reaching new people. So why don't you share a little bit about who you are? Talk about your journey, Gerry, if you don't mind, maybe a little bit. Go a little
Sure.
deeper there. We haven't done that for a while and we have new people joining us. So who you are, your journey, and what you do, and then we'll get rolling.
That may take 2 hours, Tracy.
Well, Cole's notes, high level. You have
Okay,
5 minutes, Gerry.
perfect. My name is Gerry Friesen. I'm also known as a recovering farmer. Interestingly enough, I gave myself that tag, probably 12, 13 years ago. I think I did it somewhat facetiously at the time, but it kind of stuck. And and I've been asked. In fact, I did a radio interview a few years after that, and they referred to me as a recovering farmer. And then after that, my sister called me and asked me, "What does that mean?" And I kind of went, "Oh, I've never really thought about it." So I looked into it, and to recover means to return to a previous state or level of health, prosperity, and equanimity. And I just thought that fits so well. And the reason I call myself the recovering farmer is I used to farm, Tracy, in Western Manitoba, had a hog and turkey farm. Through the course of that, I ran into mental health issues, and in 2004 was diagnosed with anxiety and depression. And and for me, that's been a journey. I went on meds at the outset, not really realizing what the implications of that might be. And so I often say that was the recovery part of my journey. But the discovery part came a number of years later when, in fact, I got involved with the Manitoba Farm and Rural Stress Line as a volunteer counselor. So really, since and I could, like I said, facetiously, I said I could spend 2 hours talking about this, and I often do. But that's kind of the Coles Notes version. I started doing farm debt mediation in 2000 and have dealt with, I believe, somewhere around 600 farm families that are facing financial trouble. I'm doing mediation for the Automobile Injury Mediation Office, which deals with people that have been hurt in motor vehicle accidents. And so I guess my life is consumed on that side of things with helping people that are in crisis. And and so that work with the farm line was an extension. I thought the training I got would be an extension to that work I was doing. But as it turns out, it was also a lot more because I got a better, deeper understanding of mental wellness, of mental illness. I was able to understand myself better, be able to verbalize better what was going on with me. And so over the course of the years, I've had numerous appointments with different health practitioners. A lot of them tried to help, and yet I seemingly couldn't take that big step that I needed. And finally, I think it's only 4 years ago, someone really connected dots for me. Didn't heal me that day, but certainly connected dots so I could understand what I needed to do. But like I tell people, that the journey continues. I'll be honest with you. This fall, I normally have a little bit of a slide and fall because we're getting into winter, and winter are darker times. It's cold, it's snowy. I don't have a lot of hobbies in the winter time. Christmas is a particularly bleak time for me. My wife tries really hard to improve that, and it does work. Um, but this year I found it was worse. And so that means I have to go back and check in with those people that can help me to improve my journey.
Lovely. Thank you for sharing, Gerry. It's been a while since we went a little bit deeper into your story. I'm like, you know what? It's a good time to do that again. So lovely. Okay. You work with farmers. You are involved in the mental health industry. We'll go into that a little bit later. You have your thumb on the pulse of mental health and agriculture. Do you want to just touch on what's keeping farmers up? Here we are, end of December. as we're recording this, 2022, it'll be airing in January. What is keeping farmers up right now?
That list I think is quite long, Tracy. But again, when you look at it, there's so many things that are happening that are outside of the control of farmers, which is always troublesome. We have the interest rates have been going up, which some of us, I know I certainly have a memory of the late 70s and early 80s when it went to 20%. And so people that remember those times are concerned about that. I'm not suggesting for a minute they're headed there, but certainly people start thinking about it because it makes such a big difference on their debt servicing abilities. We have the weather. This last year was a challenge with grain farmers getting out on the fields later on in the season. Uh, it turned out okay. We have significantly higher input costs for next year. We have a carbon tax that's being increased. That's on the grain farming side primarily. I chatted with the Manitoba turkey producers a few weeks ago, and poultry producers in Manitoba and other areas are dealing with the avian flu. And as much as I used to be a turkey farmer, I had no idea how devastating it was. And I believe, Tracy, you and I have talked before about you have stress with farming, but when livestock is involved, it adds even another layer because as farmers, we care for our animals.
Yeah.
And when we see devastation, we see a big flock of turkeys, for example, within a matter of 3 days the flock gets decimated. It's heart rendering and heartbreaking. And so that, aside from the financial stuff that's going to happen, there's that extra piece to it. And I just read in the last little while that the hog producers are concerned about swine flu, I believe it's called. That's been a threat for a while, and so there's all these things that feel like threats to farmers, and so that adds to the stress they're already feeling just trying to run their farm because we know that in farming and it's changed so much over the years and each year, each month, each day, farmers are required to make more and more decisions. And I've heard, you know what, you're only one decision away from a completely different life. And so it can have that kind of major impact on your farm. And so it's stressful.
Yeah. There was the first Gerry quote. I love it. We're back on our game, Gerry.
I was wondering if you'd catch it.
Oh, I always catch it. You've probably seen a grin on me. Gerry and I, for those of you guys that may just be tuning in, we both love quotes and we always share quotes. So we're back in our groove, Gerry.
Right on. Perfect.
Well, and you know what? And same thing as we've always said on previous episodes, every time we talk, it just seems to be snowballing a little bit quicker. And you were speaking about 20% interest rates, and I'm no analyst, so don't quote me on this, but I said to somebody, I said, oh my gosh, I wonder if it'll ever go there. And the person made a comment, it doesn't need to. With the debt levels, and this was in a more day-to-day person conversation, not even farming, but farming's amplified. But with the debt levels that people carry on their houses and life, now switch that over to farming, how expensive land is, machinery, all of that. We don't need 20% in interest rates to do the damage that did, right? Just
Tracy, I saw, yeah, you're right. Sorry, I interrupted you. I
no,
saw an example of that on news the other day. They were talking about the increasing interest rates. And again, this wasn't a farming situation. It was someone with a mortgage inside Winnipeg who said that their mortgage payments had gone up $1,000 a month since the interest rate started going up. And I looked at my wife and I said, they must have $1 million mortgage. And so I did some math and no, it was, I believe it worked out, and it was rough math, but I think it worked out to a $300,000 or $400,000 mortgage, which is an average type mortgage these days.
yeah,
And
it's
so
not
that
on the low end.
impact is a lot, yeah, that impact is a lot more severe than I was even thinking.
Yeah, great example. That's exactly what the conversation I was having. I'm like, oh, right. like 20. Anyways, I don't need to be doomsdayer here, but we get the point. The interest
Merry
rate.
Christmas.
Yeah, Merry Christmas. Bah humbug. Oh, Gerry, it's always fun talking to you. I like your sense of humor. You have the same, you have a similar sense of humor as I do, so I appreciate it. Okay, well, instead of being a bah humbug, Tracy, I'm going to turn it over to you, and we're going to provide the audience with some takeaways for stress management, mental health, because that is what you do. That's your journey you've walked through. And when you're out speaking to agriculture organizations, that's what you talk about. So let's deliver some helpful tips to make our audience happy and healthy.
The very first thing I would say, priority number one, is talking about it.
Oh, yeah.
And when I say talking about it, I don't mean, you instantly have to go see a psychiatrist. I had, this is again my own personal experience in 2005 when I was right on the edge of the abyss because of some life events. I wasn't sure which way to turn. I showed up at the barn early in the morning and my neighbor happened to drop by and he just out of the blue kind of said, "So how are you doing?" And you know how we normally say, "Fine, not a problem, getting by." This morning I said, "Plugging along to someone." But for some strange reason that day, I took the advantage to just start talking. And for probably 45 minutes, I just spewed what was all going on up here. And that neighbor sat there and he normalized and validated what I was saying. He didn't sit there and provide answers. He didn't sit there and diminish what I was feeling, but rather was just that shoulder to cry on. And that was one of the most impactful experiences I've ever had, Tracy. And so I challenge people to first and foremost start talking about it because it gets it out of your head. And when I start verbalizing what's going on up here, sometimes I realize that what's going up in there is just a whole bunch of BS, really. Other times when I verbalize it, I figure, oh, it's really not as bad as I was thinking it was. Or what it does is it just simply releases that pressure in your head. So talking about it is so important. Then of course there's stress management tips we have. We have to make sure we sleep well, and that's easier said than done for some people. We have to eat healthy. I hate talking about exercise when we're talking about farmers because I know a lot of them work so hard that any other exercise isn't necessary, and yet during the winter there may be slow times and it's important to get exercise, getting outside, walking, get your endorphins going in your head. um, and then like I say, and the other thing, one really neat thing is, and you just mentioned humor, Tracy, we need to learn to laugh more.
Mm.
They say that kids laugh up to 400 times a day, and as adults that drops as low as 12 times a day. That's not laughing enough. So we need to laugh more. And if everything else fails, and I don't say this as it being a bad thing, but if these things aren't working and you find yourself still, perhaps not sleeping, your stomach is churning, you don't want to eat, and all this stuff is going on, and you have more decisions to make, seek a professional to talk to.
Yeah.
There's no harm in that. And based on my experience again, and I've been asked this by people, well, how do I know who to talk to? And I said, you know what? You have to take that first step, find someone to talk to. If it doesn't feel right, find someone else. I know in my life, it was probably the fourth or fifth professional I saw that finally connected those dots for me. So don't give up.
Nice. I want to touch on two of those, Gerry, because first one is connection and talking. Funny enough, when we just started recording the episode, I have my day-to-day work and stress and stuff you're dealing with, farm stuff, all of that. I sit down, you're a little in the headspace, a little heavier, I'll be honest with y'all, like I always am. But you sit down and it's like, oh, serious Tracy. And just you and I, just in the little bit that we've been chatting, and then that big laugh I had, man, did that release. And that connection I always get with you, with our other guests when I connect, there's just something about that. And we've
Yep.
chatted about this, you and the audience know. In farming, sometimes you get busy, you get at home in your circle, you're not going outside as much because it's winter. Those things all compound, right? And then all of a sudden it's just that very solitary, serious feeling. That isn't so great. We're meant to connect and laugh.
Exactly. And here's another one. We're the loneliest society in the history of the world.
Oh, I believe it.
And it's incredible when you think about all the social media stuff, telephones, everything we have to stay connected to people, but we're a lonely society. And that's why many of us are unhealthy. And of course, the whole COVID thing just really amplified that and really brought it home for me how important human connection is.
Yeah. And I'm going to go somewhere really quick, but we won't go deep on this, Gerry. But I still think a lot of people are dealing with the aftermath of COVID, and there's been no chat, no counseling. And this sounds so whatever, over analyzing, but it's not. It happened and it's like, okay, go back to normal. And most people, I will say, are still trying to process what happened
Yep.
and integrate back. You don't know, and I'm not doing a pat on my shoulder here, but you don't know how many people on social media, they put a post, doesn't sound great, like, I have no hope, I'm giving up. And I actually just, and again, this is not to this, you just want to connect with people. You hear the desperation. So I send a quick note and say, hey, don't give up, da, da, da. But yeah, people are still processing, right? And I don't think that pre-COVID connection has come back for a lot of people. Some are good, but others are still dealing with that. And to be honest, I just want to address that elephant in the room in case somebody's
Yep.
watching and going, oh, I'm still not back to normal.
Yep.
What's wrong with
Well,
me?
you
Right?
know, Tracy, I was going to say I talked to someone last week about this, and then while I was thinking that, I remembered it was actually with you,
Yeah, we did.
where, where, and I told you then, and you put it into better words than I did, but really, in essence, what we agreed on was it was difficult to get our feet under us,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
Because we were here, now we're here, and it's like something still doesn't feel right. And so in my case for sure is with the mental health stuff I've got going on, it takes a real effort on my part to actually step out and socialize. If we've got time, I'll give you a prime example is, you know, that I golf a lot during the summer, and
Mm-hmm.
I've got my 2 or 3 friends that I golf with. Well, golfing ends, what do? Well, these guys that I golf with, they're retired, and so they suggested we go play the golf simulators or whatever, indoor golf in Winnipeg. And so last week they had arranged the time, and I said to my wife, I said, I know I have to go because I know it will help me, but I sure do not feel like going. And that's totally bizarre because 2, 3 years ago it would have been woohoo, you know. But here I'm still trying to adjust to this new reality we have. I was going to say to normal, but normal is out the window. Just this new reality we have.
Yeah. And that's why I wanted to mention it, Gerry. I'm not normally a super vulnerable person, but then on the other hand, I'm like, the heck with it. Who cares? I don't care if people judge me. And honestly, there's been one or two people out in this realm here that have named it also and said, you know what? People are still dealing with this. And it's like, let's brush it under the rug and carry on. If people have moved on, fantastic. And different
Yeah.
personalities and different levels of community involvement, people are going to deal with it different. But we're talking about mental health here. And I have the platform. I'll be vulnerable and say,
Yeah.
there's a
Yeah.
lot of people that are just like you going, oh, do I want to socialize? We've been separated for years, masks on our face, distance. It's not easy to overcome that for many.
So,
Yep.
yeah. Yeah. The only other thing I thought of adding to this list of what to do
Yeah.
is people should not shy away from hiring the services of and I'm going to generalize the term, business advisors.
Mm,
Uh, because, and I'm not selling myself because I'm not a business advisor. So
yeah,
this isn't a commercial. Rather, what it is just through my work, I've come to understand how people, particularly when they're under stress, particularly when cash flow may be tight, when they have to get a plan together, for example, for the bank for next year, it's difficult sometimes to make rational decisions. And we know about the studies that have been done and the surveys that have been done. I'm not going to go into those details. But what happens is if you get a neutral third party to sit down with you, so you can again verbalize your plan, you can show the plan. This person can tell you what's real, what isn't, and where you could improve on that and help you make those decisions because they're so darn tough to make when the head isn't quite right.
yep. I love it, Gerry. Thanks for adding that. And thanks for going there and all those valuable tips. That was fantastic. I know somebody in the audience, as they always are when you come on, going, oh, it's not just me, right? And that's the most amazing
Well,
feeling.
and that is an incredibly important point, Tracy. I often say when I talk to people, I say, you are not alone. And it's interesting over the years how many people, when I've sat down and chatted with them around the kitchen table, and I say, well, this happened to me, or I was dealing with another person and this happened to them, and they go, what? I'm not the only one? No, no. The stressors might be a little different, but hey, we're all feeling it.
I love it. That's so valuable. Okay, so I want to switch gears a little bit. And if you think of anything else, jump in at any time, Gerry. But let's move on over to the Manitoba Farmer Wellness Program that was launched a while back. You are the chief administrative officer for this program. Why don't I love giving you guys space to talk and promote the program at any time? And it's been a while. So share with our audience like you're telling them about the program for the first time, because there's people probably just hearing about it now.
Okay, this will be a commercial. How's that?
Yes.
All right. Thanks, Tracy. And certainly, I know in our conversations, you have shown that support on social media. It's awesome to see that. The long and short of it is that there was a organization formed a year ago called the Manitoba Farmer Wellness Program. It's a program geared to provide 6 free counseling sessions to farmers and their families. So anybody over the age of 16, I believe, would qualify, mom, dad, daughters, sons, sons-in-laws, for these free sessions. Um, the goal of this was, I guess we always said we were filling a gap. I know for 22 years we've had the Manitoba Farm and Rural Stress Line, which is more of a crisis line. This is more a short-term, longer-term solution, I suppose, for that. So when you are in crisis, no, we don't answer the phone and provide counseling over the phone, that type of thing. What you do is you find a counselor and then you can have those 6 free sessions. It's funded solely by donations. We set a goal. We had no idea what the uptake would be. We had heard anecdotally about what was going on in Ontario and on Prince Edward Island, and so we kind of set a goal for $100,000 for the first year, and this would help 125 farmers, I believe. Um, People were quick to donate, Tracy. It was absolutely mind-boggling last Christmas or just shortly after New Year's when this became public. You know that the first, I believe, 3 or 4 donations we got were from farmers
Lovely.
because farmers know we need this. And then businesses and organizations were quick to jump in, and so we were able to gather the funds relatively quickly. And so our focus has become more now to build awareness. We have to get the word out there more. And I always think, well, we've done some media interviews, TV, papers, done a lot on social media, but I'm still amazed at how often I hear that people have never heard of this program. So your help in this, Tracy, is invaluable because I know people watch this, and so I said before, one of the tips was if push comes to shove, go seek professional help. Well, here's your opportunity. We have four counselors that have farming background. And when I say that, I'm not saying that they're farmers or used to be farmers, but they have that agricultural knowledge to understand when a farmer comes in what farming is all about, which people had asked for. And we were able to deliver on that. And so we have four counselors here in Manitoba, and and so it's simple, and there's you don't have to talk to anybody else. It's a simple process. You can go to our website and you can read the bios and credentials of our counselors, and you can pick the one you feel think might help you, and you make that direct connection. I never find out who people, which people have gone for counseling. I have no idea. So it's between you and the counselor, so you can still keep that privacy and confidentiality, which is very, very important for a lot of people.
Absolutely. As much as we all think we're the only ones going through hard times and we have those blinders on, it is still very private. I'm a private person. I don't like to bear all my, so that's super important. And if you had not addressed the anonymous, I was going to ask you because I like to hit that point. Question: do you guys do the sessions on phone, Zoom? How does that work?
Those arrangements are made between the counselor and the client.
Okay,
We've had everything from in person to virtual to teleconference.
that's perfect.
One of the issues, of course, is the fact that Manitoba is a huge province. Um, we only have four counselors at this point, and so that whole in-person thing doesn't always work. But also, we've learned how to do things virtually now, and it's a good tool to use as well. So the options are there for whatever works.
That's fantastic. I lean on Zoom a lot and it's the next best thing. I see you, right? But then the great thing too, there's some people, if they're stressed and embarrassed and nervous about it, just having the phone and not having the face would probably make them feel a lot more comfortable. The more introverted personalities, right? Or they just want to be
Yeah,
anonymous, right?
yeah.
That's
And you're right. I have for the last 12 years not talked quite openly about my life. So I don't even I have no issues telling someone, well, I went to see a professional last week, but I know that there's still a concern out there. Part of it is stigma, which is getting less because of all the work that's being done. And part of it is just simply like you say, people want to keep things private, and that's great. I respect that. And that's why we designed it the way we did. We've heard, that a lot of businesses, government have these EAP programs, where you go through one party to make an appointment with someone else, and everybody knows everything that's going on. And so we wanted to avoid that, and so we have a fairly seamless process set up so that people can enjoy their privacy and their confidentiality.
I love it. One thing, Gerry, you're my guy to talk to about this. So I'm going to say, and you guys get to witness our conversation. But one thing I'm on to lately, I like to share my theories with you. Where are we ever taught about our emotions and how to process them? School teaches that? Our parents? That's not something really we're taught, right?
In my generation, Tracy, and probably even more so in my parents' generation, was if you were experiencing something like emotions, that meant you weren't working hard enough. If you were having issues on the farm, financial issues on the farm, you weren't working hard enough. You had to work your way out of it.
Yeah.
That doesn't work.
No.
It does not work. And so, no, we're not taught to do that. And I'm going to word this very, very carefully, although I don't think I have to with you. And it came out again in the survey that Dr. Andrea Jones Bitten and Brianna Hagan did last year when they did another survey of farmers, and how women react differently to the stress than men do.
Yes.
And we have to be mindful of that.
Yeah.
And so there is that difference. When I first started talking about it was in 2010 when I facilitated workshops specifically called Men and Depression, because as men we're loath to talk about it, and so we'd rather disappear into the machine shed or into the barn where we can work
Yeah.
and don't have to face that. And women are much more prone to talk about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Women are, I don't even think we need to be careful about that. I think that's got to be well known enough. Women are wired to connect, and men, and of course it's changing and we're all getting it there, right? But men are taught to sit down, shut up, get to work harder, work away those feelings. I have grandparents, parents, that generation. I think it's changing, but that is that's one of the things I have been thinking about a lot. Where are we ever taught about emotions, how to process them, how to handle them? And here we are all walking around doing life. Biggest part of life is relationships, emotions, right? And we're not taught. So, anyways, that's my little rant that I'm on lately.
Yeah, so just one other piece on the Manitoba Farmer Wellness Program
Yes.
is we will be at Ag Days.
Excellent.
We will have a booth at Ag Days. I think it's on what they call Main Street. Don't quote me on that, but we will be there with a booth. We will be selling Ag Days t-shirts, and the proceeds of those sales all go to our program. So people drop by, talk to us, find out what it's all about,
Nice.
have a conversation, you know. And if you don't want to admit to things yourself, then drop in and say, you know what, I'm asking for a friend. I'm going to respect that.
Yeah.
And we can talk about things.
Or hey, can I grab a card to talk to you guys and then give you an email later? I'm sure that would be okay too, right?
Absolutely.
That's okay. Good. I was thinking about you guys in Egg Days earlier when you were talking. I'm like, they got to go to Egg Days. I hope they're there.
Well, and you know what, Tracy? Again, we're growing into this, and we were a little bit slow on the uptake, and so we went, oh, I don't, we can't get into Ag Days this go around, but we better get there for the next year. And so when we made contact with them, they said, hey, we had just had someone cancel a booth. Please come take it. And they're giving us these t-shirts to sell, and they're really being supportive because I believe their theme this year is mental health.
Oh, good. Good. And it seems like they have a good bunch of organizers. That's fantastic. Good. I'll
Yeah,
see you guys there.
we're
Now,
very thankful for that. Yeah.
fantastic. For the individuals watching, who are many that are not in Manitoba, you mentioned there's some programs in the other provinces. And if there is not, what is the resource you would recommend as the gap filler there?
I should have looked into that a little bit more than I did.
That's
Um,
okay. I'll list them on the show page, and I didn't prepare you for that, so my bad. But I'll list them on the show page for you guys in the audience.
yeah,
Jerry can send them.
Prince Prince Edward Island has a program,
Okay.
and they've had one for, oh, I think probably 10 years. Um, and they started a program in Ontario in one county, and it grew to about seven. And then what happened is between the Ontario government, CMHA in Ontario, and I believe the Ontario Federation of Agriculture. Don't quote me on that. I believe those three organizations got together and have done something province-wide, um, which I believe, I don't know the details of that, Tracy, but they expanded it because they saw the good work that was being done in, I believe, seven counties. But other than that, no, we've had some interest shown from a few other provinces, some questions asked about how we started it here. But I believe for the most part, I believe most of the provinces that have agriculture have farm and rural stress lines or farm stress lines. And quite honestly, Tracy, sometimes people also get hung up on too much. Well, if it doesn't have farm in it, I can call.
True.
Well, yes, you can.
Yeah.
Uh, it's worth it reaching out. Our tagline that we use at the Manitoba Farmer Wellness Program is without the farmer, there is no farm. And It's so true.
Perfect. And I guess maybe one call out too. There's other organizations, Do More Egg. I think
Yes.
the other one you mentioned, Canadian Mental, what is that?
Well, it's CMHA, but there's also another one, and oh, Lauren is going to kick me for not remembering. The National Mental Health Alliance.
You
Oh,
just told me about it too, and I forget. Either way, if you don't
yes.
mind, Gerry, send them to me. We'll connect after. And by the time this goes live, we'll put it all in the show notes.
Okay, that's great. I just have gotten to the point where I don't remember acronyms very well.
I know.
So,
And there's so many of them. How can
yeah.
you? Yeah.
But yes, there's organizations doing these work, and I think it's awesome. A lot of it's, for building awareness purposes, and we need more of that.
Yeah.
There's been a lot going on, and we're getting more of that. Farm Credit Canada, for example, has they had a publication out for a few years called Rooted in Strength. They just released a new version of that, which I believe is called Rooted in Resilience, if I'm not wrong. Excellent resource because it's not a big thick book, big thick self-help book, but what it does is it has some anecdotal stories regarding individuals with their experiences, and then it has a dashboard where you can, take a quick look and you can very quickly establish kind of where you are on that whole spectrum and whether you should perhaps consider seeking some further help.
Okay, excellent. And I'll link out to all of those too. We're a massive industry, but we're really a tiny industry too. And I know everybody is so great and we're all working for the same goal. So I'll list it all on the show page.
Yeah.
Final call, final words of wisdom, anything you want to share as parting words for our time together.
No, I think, Tracy, I've said it all. I just wish that people would not hold back in seeking help. Again, I know personally, and I've seen it in a lot of other people, there is hope and there is relief. And the sooner we can get that, the sooner we can live a more fulfilled life and not just survive, but thrive. And so that's the goal we need to pursue because if we don't, it's not going to be a very good time.
I love it. There's a Gerry quotable. Not only survive, we're going to thrive. There we go.
Yes, here's a quote. Make life changes before life changes.
Powerful. You got to start a little quote book.
Oh, trust me, I have one.
I think I've told you this, Gerry. I may have shared it on the show, but I have a, what do you call them? Clipboard? One in my office, one in my house. And anytime I find a good quote, I post it on the clipboard and I'm always rotating them according to what I need prompting on. That's kind of one of my mental tips that I use. Yeah.
Here's another one for you. Sorry, now you got me going. When I was going through a lot of this back in 2004, my daughter was probably 14 at the time. She made me a wall hanging, and it's still in my office. And it's very simply says the tragedy of life isn't that it ends so soon, but that we wait so long to begin it.
Oh, that
Yeah,
one hits in the gut.
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and a quote, it's these quotes that have a fairly loud message for individuals, and that one had one for me, and I hung it on my wall, and I look at it quite often, and because she knew it was going to be helpful for me.
Beautiful. Funny, Gerry. I'm thinking we need to do a quote episode and we'll go through and share quotes and talk about them. The quotes have changed our life and how they've impacted us. I'm crazy, I know. Welcome to
We'll
the
have a
Impact Farming Show.
we'll have a quote off.
A quote off. I love it. Yes. Okay. We'll keep that one on the back burner. We got to practice yet. Well, Gerry, it has been lovely. If farmers want to connect with you directly to chat for mediation services, can they connect with you?
Absolutely, and I actually have just launched a new web page, gerryfriesen.ca. And in fact, if people want to see Tracy on the other side of the table, I had the privilege of interviewing her probably about a year ago for some interviews I do for the Stigma Free Society. Those videos are on my website. Tracy, you mentioned a few years ago, it was 2018, in fact, when you and I did a deep dive into my journey. Um, and that one won an award, I might add.
Yes.
Uh, those interviews with you, Tracy, are on there. And so if people want to see more of this, they can, sorry, not more of this because you, but more of what I do and people I have talked to, they can go there and check it out and they can contact me through there. If people are interested in the Manitoba Farmer Wellness Program and what they have to offer, but want more information, they can go to Manitoba Farmer Wellness Program.ca and they will have my contact information in there, in fact, and they can give me a call or shoot me an email and I will respond.
Lovely. Thank you, Gerry, for your time. As always, I love our connection. I love our conversations. I love our laughter, and I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, Tracy, for having me. I always enjoy it.
My pleasure. And you in the audience, thank you for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed the episode. I hope you can take something away. And most of all, I'll use a Gerry quotable. I hope you not only survive, I hope you thrive. See you next episode, guys. Bye-bye.